Davis, the regional administrator for the Small Business Administration. I head up the Region 1, which is the New England region. And we got a whole team here from Massachusetts to answer questions. And I'm going to be brief because I know I want to make sure we leave enough time to answer all those questions. But you had mentioned the EIDL program recently being opened up for farm folks. The other thing that's happened is with our PPP program, that was kind of a sprint and a race, that round one. It was pretty crazy. It was all over the media. But in this round two, where there was extra funding, one of the things that we've realized in the last couple of weeks is one, we have money left over, so to speak. We have $130 billion still left. And so we've had a little bit of time to figure out, hey, let's make sure we're reaching, either underserved sectors or underserved communities. And let's just make sure that, we're reaching as many people as we can. So one of the first sectors that was immediately brought to my attention through the administration down at headquarters was, hey, let's make sure our farmers and all of our farm-related businesses are aware of these programs. I mean, ultimately, each person, each business has to make a decision if the program's right for them. For me, I just want to make sure as many folks have the right information so they can make that decision. So we thank you for this invitation and giving us the opportunity to jump on the call and fulfill our mission. And I'm going to hand it over to Bob so he can introduce the folks from his team. And I think Eli's going to give a presentation too. Bob, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Wendell, and thanks, Brad, for having the SBA on to talk about PPP and EIDL and the other programs that we have. So there are two members of my team that are on the call with us. So Oreste Varela is our branch manager out in Springfield, Mass. So he is a one-person office, covers the 4 Western Mass counties, but certainly a lot of ag businesses out that way, and he's technically our ag point of contact for the Massachusetts SBA office. And then Eli Spyu is our lead lender relations specialist and heads up our team working with lenders and small businesses with our access to capital programs and our products. So we're all here to try to help answer questions and to help the agricultural community. But I did want to just share a quick fact. So SBA Administrator and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, they were before the Small Business Committee earlier today talking about the programs and answering questions from the committee. And one comment that was mentioned, which I think is just really amazing when you think of SBA and being a small agency, what they talked about was that the PPP represents 50 million jobs in the United States and 75% of the payroll. And so it really is incredible when you think that, the bill was signed on March 27th. We implemented it a week later, and we've sort of been going strong and nonstop since that time. But it has absolutely resulted in saving a lot of businesses through PPP and EIDL. But it's just really a testament to a lot of work on the part of our partners, our lenders, the SBA staff, but a lot of folks out there trying to help small businesses to get through this. So I'll turn it over to Eli because I know we want to get into a lot of Q&A. But again, I have a wonderful lender relations team, a wonderful staff, and Eli, I'll turn it over to you so that you could do a quick overview of the two programs.
Sure. Thank you very much, Bob. I didn't know if, if you wanted to go over some of the numbers. I'm hoping everybody can see the screen that I'm sharing.
Yeah, we can see your the SBA logo in the first slide.
All right, wonderful. So just quickly, I don't know if you want me to cover the numbers or if you.
Again, we can just go through this real quick, Eli. And so, on the PPP, you're talking 4.5 million approvals for $511 billion plus. And if you look at Massachusetts, the numbers are equally as strong with over 100,000 approvals, $14 billion. The PPP, absolutely. I've heard from small businesses. I've heard from partners. this has saved businesses and it has saved jobs. One of the comments that was mentioned during the testimony today, we had this wonderful jobs number that came out, and the belief is absolutely that PPP played a big role in helping to get some of those job numbers and getting people back onto the payrolls off of unemployment. But loan sizes, what we're seeing now are small businesses getting loans, and which is good news. And average loan sizes under $70,000, but all different industries, you name it, they're getting the help through EIDL and through PPP. And but here's the Massachusetts numbers. It just really is historic as far as SBA in aggregate, but here in Massachusetts with 106,000 small businesses getting PPP approvals. But what I'll just say before I turn it over to Eli. So when PPP round one, you heard Wendell mention how it was a mad dash and a wild west. A lot of rules weren't known, but small businesses were applying. People were worried about money running out. It did run out. We did get additional appropriations, but guidance has continued to come out along the way. And so I really do think that right now, for folks that have not applied for a PPP, the timing couldn't be better, because we're getting into the reopening phase with businesses sort of getting back towards normal. It's going to take a little while longer, but we're much further along than where we were when we first started doing PPPs. And as far as EIDL loans, with them being open for agricultural businesses, you'll hear from Eli, they're two very different programs. They complement each other. And so we're encouraging businesses to apply for both. So Eli, why don't you get into the meat of the presentation and the overview, and it's all yours.
Yep. Thank you very much, Bob, and definitely appreciate the opportunity to share some, some high-level, remarks here about the program and the guidelines. But first, just wanted to talk briefly about the Paycheck Protection Program. Obviously, on this slide, we have the program as it was enacted during round one and round two. Obviously, I've got the next slide that talks briefly about some of the changes made to the program after the passage of the Flexibility Act, which definitely is going to make a world of difference for a lot of small businesses. And again, in here we see that the loan program had a 2-year maturity, interest rate of 1%. Obviously, it required 75% of the forgiven loan amount to have been used for payroll. And after the Flexibility Act was passed, you can see here that requirement for payroll cost was dropped from 75% down to 60%. Another major, change of the program here is, the covered period went from an 8-week period to a 24-week period, which is after the date of the disbursement on the loan. I think overall, this is going to affect the program, positively affect the program. I mean, we have, as we shared earlier, we have $130 billion left in the PPP loan program, but definitely the deadline for the applications is June 30th. So folks don't have a whole lot of time. Those who have not taken advantage of this program, definitely they want to put in an application for the PPP loan program, especially after this changes made to the PPP guidelines. So a couple of safe harbors are in place. Again, the initial safe harbor date was June 30th. Now it was extended by 6 months to December 31st of 2020. So all positive changes overall, I think. But again, this is on this next slide, I've got some information on the EIDL loan program. As Wendell shared with the audience, currently the SBA is only accepting EIDL loan programs for agricultural businesses. So for the most part, ag businesses with 500 or fewer employees, that are engaged in the production of food and fiber, ranching, raising of livestock, aquaculture, and any other farming and agricultural related industries would be eligible for the program. So an EIDL loan program, unlike the Paycheck Protection Loan Program, can be used pretty much for anything. All business operating expenses, I should clarify. So it can be used to pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payables. Now, if it is used for payroll, obviously, that would render, the applicant business ineligible for PPP. So in order for a small business to qualify for both the EIDL loan program as well as the PPP loan program, they have to, utilize these two loan programs for very distinct purposes. So whereas the Paycheck Protection Loan Program can only be used for, or the majority of it can be used for payroll expenses, the EIDL loan is for working capital needs, okay? So it is definitely not intended to, to replace lost sales or profits or for any, expansions of the business. But, there's two parts of the EIDL loan program, and one is the loan itself, whereas the other part of it is the loan advance. So the loan advance, the best way I can describe it, is truly a grant. So it is $1,000 per employee, and it carries a maximum of $10,000 per applicant or small business. So any small business that applies for the loan advance, obviously, is going to get it based on the number of employees that they employ. And this EIDL advance does not need to be repaid. So whether, some applications, and we're going to go over the EIDL loan program briefly here. Some applications may not get approved based on credit or other criteria, that's within the program guidelines. But the EIDL advance is still going to be, available to the applicant business. So briefly, the maximum loan amount can be up to $2 million, and interest rates are fixed. For-profits get a fixed rate of 3.75%. Private nonprofit entities do qualify for a lower interest rate. Now, the beauty of this program is that it carries a 30-year maximum maturity, and obviously there's absolutely no payments for the first 12 months. So interest does accrue during the first 12 months, but the loan's going to be amortized over 30 years, or I should say the additional 29 years after the deferment period. The big difference here for folks to remember is that whereas the PPP loan program can only be offered through a bank or a participating lender, a partner of the SBA, the EIDL loans are directly, obtained through the SBA. And obviously these are funded by the Treasury. So there's no collateral requirements. However, for low dollar loans, I should say, so loans under $25,000 require no collateral, and we do have some added flexibility there for larger size loans. But there are personal guarantees with the EIDL loan. So whereas the Paycheck Protection Loan Program requires absolutely no personal guarantees and no collateral of any sort, the EIDL loan program will require a personal guarantee of any 20% or greater owner of the business. So
Eli, I think that the personal guarantee on EIDL is for loans over $200,000.
That's right. So, and again, the collateral requirement, as I mentioned, is actually a little relaxed for loans under $200,000 as well.
Yep.
But I think, perhaps we should open it up to questions and see, if we can address any of the participants' questions on either program.
Sure. Just a couple things I just wanted to reinforce. So you heard us all mention on PPP that the application deadline is June 30th. That is not the application transaction between the small business and the PPP lender. The lender needs to submit the application to the SBA and to get an approval by the SBA by June 30th. So for businesses that are looking for a PPP loan, act quickly, get your application in, because the lender might have some questions and they need to go through their process in order to get it submitted to us. So do not wait until the 30th to go to your PPP lender to make an application for this. The lender submits it to us. It has to be approved with the SBA by June 30th. And then the other thing that I just wanted to mention on the EIDL and the EIDL advance, you don't have to ask for the EIDL loan. You can ask for just the advance grant. So they are separate. So if you're only interested in getting the grant, that's certainly an option to you through sba.gov/disaster. So just wanted to share those couple thoughts, Eli.
Well, thanks, Bob. Good points. And definitely, I mean, that's part of the reason I wanted to make sure that folks are aware of June 30th. Now, the EIDL loan program, on the other hand, may be made available to businesses outside of the agricultural, according to that testimony that the Secretary of the Treasury and our administrator made in Congress today. But obviously, for the time being, only agricultural businesses can apply.
And Brad, it's Wendell speaking. Just a couple of high-level points. Just given the new guidance that we just got last Thursday, let's just start with the PPP program. There really is no reason not to apply, in my view. Now that there's a 24-week period in which you have to expend the funds on payroll, as long as you apply it to payroll, and again, you got 24 weeks to do this, and it's going to be forgiven. So that loan is going to get converted into a grant, and you're not going to have to pay it back. And if you're using it for payroll, that 60% threshold, then you can extend the reach of that loan that is forgivable to things like rent, to mortgage interest on any existing debt that you have, business debt, and also utilities. And as long as you stay within those parameters, and those parameters are super broad now, all of that loan is going to be forgivable. And in a worst case scenario, if for whatever reason it didn't work out and it's not forgivable, and it's hard to imagine a scenario where it's not forgivable, it'll convert to a 1% loan that you can always pay back. So we're encouraging people with the new rules that just came down on Thursday, really take a hard look at this because you should be able to fashion a way where this is going to be forgivable. And if you're a small farmer, let's say you're just a one-person shop, you're a sole proprietor, you're still eligible. Even though we talk about employees, a sole proprietor for the purposes of the PPP is essentially an employee, and they're entitled to 8 weeks of pay based upon last year's income.
I think a lot of people don't realize that, Wendell. That's actually really good information.
Yeah, and a lot of confusion out there. I was listening to a national TV business show just last Monday, and they put out there that sole proprietors aren't eligible, and I'm like, no, that's not. I'm yelling at the TV screen, and nobody corrected that. So that's important to know. And the other thing too is, like Bob had mentioned, I just want to emphasize this, the EIDL advance, even if you don't want to take on debt, and again, that debt is something you don't have to pay back for, I believe it's a year, and have, you can have that liquidity, you can always pay it back. But that advance, if you're one person, it's $1,000. That application, when you go on, if you're not going to fill out the loan, that application for the advance, I think it's 16 questions. You can zip right through it. From what I'm hearing, they're processing those things pretty quickly. And let's say you got one employee, it's just yourself. Again, when I say employee, that includes yourself. You got one person, you're going to get $1,000. If you got a couple people helping you, that's 3 people, you're going to get $3,000. If you got 10 people, it's up to 10 grand. Why not do that? It's not going to take you that long.
Okay. Hey, we've got a couple questions in chat, and I'm not sure everybody can see them, so I'll go through them. First one's from Matt. Matt says, do forms have to be submitted to the bank to have the PPP loan forgiven?
Yes.
Yes. So Matt says yes.
Right. So the small business is going to work with the lender. Right now, my opinion, there's no rush to be requesting forgiveness. So we just got the PPP Flexibility Act. SBA is going to be retooling the PPP forgiveness application so that it complies with the changes. I know the Treasury Secretary was talking about some potential simplifications, but we're going to have to wait to see what actually comes out. But the small business is going to submit the PPP forgiveness application with the lender. The lender has 60 days to review that to make their assessment as far as what portion of the loan would be eligible for forgiveness. The lender would submit information to the SBA. SBA reviews it, and we pay the lender, and hopefully to pay off the loan in full. So that's the process. The small business is going to have to provide documentation to the lender as far as how they spent the PPP money and did they meet these targets as far as payroll and the other expenses. And so small businesses, they should be keeping very good track of the money that they got for PPP, how they're using it, so that when it comes time for them to make that application for forgiveness, they're going to have all the records and the supporting materials.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So Rita had a number of questions. First one, if I receive the PPL loan, can I still get EIDL? That was the first part.
Yes, so I'll take that one. So if a small business did receive a Paycheck Protection Loan Program, and obviously the Paycheck Protection Loan Program is to cover now at least 60%, of it should go towards payroll costs, then a small business would still be eligible for a EIDL, an economic injury disaster loan, including the advance. So the thing to keep in mind there is that although a small business is eligible, the purpose of these two loans has to be distinct. So it's got to be, the EIDL can be used for business operating expenses, not to include payroll costs. And also the other thing to keep in mind is if a small business does apply, because it's the same application both for the advance as well as for the EIDL loan. So if a small business applies for the advance, that advance is going to need to be repaid at time of PPP loan forgiveness. So the advance is a grant, loan forgiveness is also a grant. So there cannot be a duplication of benefits. Okay. So that's the thing to keep in mind.
She had several questions. The next one is, do I deduct the PPP amount from the EIDL that was approved on?
So as Eli mentioned, so if the business gets a PPP loan and they also get the advance grant, when it comes time to the forgiveness and SBA is paying the lender, we're going to deduct the EIDL advance amount from the PPP forgiveness amount that we're paying the lender. So it does get subtracted off of the PPP forgiveness total.
Okay, so you will do that automatically. She doesn't need to.
Yeah, SBA would be doing that through the forgiveness process, and we through our databases we know who got what and what accounting needs to be take place, and it's all about there not being a duplication of benefits and double dipping.
Okay, is EIDL get paid out in a lump sum?
EIDL loans, once approved, they will be credited or deposited directly into a bank account of the borrower's business account or whatever account is provided. So yes, once the loan documents are signed, within a couple of business days, the funding is in the account.
Okay, follow-up question from before. If I didn't get an EIDL advance, but just regular EIDL, then is it still deducted? Sounds like it's a yes.
You just want to use the EIDL for different purposes than PPP. So use the EIDL loan for accounts payable. Use it for inventory. Use it for other expenses. So the PPP is for payroll costs. So just use the EIDL for different purposes than the PPP. And nothing is going to be offset. It's only the EIDL advance that would get subtracted from the forgiveness amount, but as long as you just want to keep the use of proceeds separate and distinct for the two different programs. So keep in mind that under the EIDL loan, you can use EIDL to make debt service payments on existing debt. You just can't use it to refinance long-term debt. But as far as making payments on your obligations, that's a working capital need of the small business. So think of all the different ways a small business uses their working capital, and separate and distinct from payroll and rent or mortgage interest. But on PPP, it's allowed for utilities, and so think of phone bills, think of internet, think of transportation is even included in there. So we've heard people talk about that you could use that for gas, for fleet, or other that could be counted as a transportation cost. So, but keep them separate. That's my suggestion.
Okay. We still have questions from Rita, but the next one's from Matt, and he's it sounds pertinent to what you're talking about. I'm a bit confused about duplicate grants. Can you give a real-world example of how both PPL and EIDL grants can be kept and when they have to offset?
So, Bob,
go ahead. Go.
Yeah. So let's just say the PPP loan amount is $100,000. That's the approval amount. Obviously, 60% of that $100,000 needs to be spent on payroll costs, right? So in order for the full $100,000 to be forgiven, 60,000 of it needs to be spent on payroll during the 24-week period, right? Under the new guidance. So let's say the individual qualifies for the full $10,000, advance under the EIDL program. When the time comes for the loan forgiveness, the advance gets credited into the applicant's business account. So they receive the $10,000 advance as well as the $100,000 loan from the bank, assuming that the bank did not know or the borrower did not know at the time of the application for the PPP and so on and so forth. So now we've got, the small business owner got $110,000. So $10,000 advance plus $100,000 loan. When it comes time for loan forgiveness, they provide their documentation with a loan forgiveness application. $60,000 has been spent on payroll, and the other $40,000 has been spent on all covered expenses. So including, mortgage interest, leases, rents, utilities, you name it. So everything's met. The forgiveness should be $100,000. However, SBA knows that we paid $10,000 already. So the forgiveness that the bank's going to receive is $90,000. So it's $100,000 minus the $10,000. And the $10,000 that now the small business owner is going to, be short on, that's the amount that's not forgiven because, it's part of the EIDL advance. They have the option to either pay it in full to the lender at time of forgiveness, once they're told that, you only qualified for $90,000 because you already got 10. So they can pay it in a lump sum, or they can choose to pay that over time at 1%.
And the amortization period has been changed from 2 years to 5 years on PPP applications that were done after June 5th. So if a business applied for the PPP loan prior to June 5th, they should have a conversation if they think that they might end up with some portion that's unforgivable. They have a conversation with their lender, seeing if the lender will agree to the 5-year amortization versus the 2, which was the original rules. As long as there's mutual agreement, it's a very easy process for the lender to modify that early PPP loan to make it into a 5-year term as far as any portion that's not forgiven.
Going back a bit in some of the questions, there's a question whether EIDL could be used to relocate a business.
That's an ineligible use. So you can't use EIDL for relocation.
Okay. Another one seems specific to the application is, I don't understand the resolution of board of directors section. Please explain. My LLC is a single owner LLC.
Eli, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so a corporate resolution, and I think Wendell chime in on this, because this is really a legal question. In order for a small business to borrow or a corporation to borrow, right? The corporate resolution needs to authorize the additional debt that the business is going to incur. So that corporate, a corporate resolution for an LLC would be required, even if it is a one-member LLC. Some banks, make it mandatory. Others do not require it. But technically and legally, there should be a legal document authorizing the business, because although this loan, the PPP loan, let's say, can be fully forgiven, that is a loan until the moment that it is, forgiven. So, it should be carried on the balance sheet of the company, and that's the reason why there has to be, such documentation to evidence, the authority of the individual who signs on behalf of the corporation to incur the debt. Wendell?
Eli, that's a pretty good explanation. And the only difference would be that in a corporate, because you're an LLC, it's going to be a member resolution versus a corporate resolution. Mm-hmm. And again, the way Eli's explaining it is accurate, is that the loan is going to be in a company's name. That's a business entity legally. So from a technical standpoint, it's usually one paragraph. It's a resolution stating that the individual, the owner, that is signing and agreeing to this loan on behalf of the company has the authority to do it on behalf of the company.
So if I can add a couple things, because I don't think we talked about this. So, and I think these are really important points on PPP, is there's no personal guarantees at all. There's no collateral requirements. And so if you look at, the whole purpose of this is to provide the businesses with, the capital so that they can meet payroll and to meet these other expenses. But no one is personally signing, and there's no collateral requirements. And so I think that's really important for people when they're considering, should they be going for this? And I think those are two really good reasons why I would be considering it if I have not applied yet.
Okay, next question. I hadn't heard or read of PPP allowing 8 weeks payroll based on last year's income, so I'm glad you mentioned it. We have a father and son operation. In our case, would just one person be eligible for 8 weeks payment? And what do we need to show for loan documentation?
So it all depends on how the taxes of the business are filed. So we have provided guidance on calculating the loan amount, and it is, both on the SBA's website as well as the Treasury's website. So, a Schedule F filer, has specific guidance listed, on that document. And actually, I'll walk through, that page so I can show, since I'm sharing the screen, I can show everybody, what I'm referencing as a document. But there is a document on both our websites that go over 8 types of different filers, business entity filers, as to how you calculate the loan amount, what documentation is required. So, Bob, anything you want to add while I look this up?
No, I would just, again, have folks go to the document as far as calculating loan amounts.
Yeah, Bob, that's one of the best forms that are out there. It's self-explanatory. It makes sense. And so, Brad, if they're structured as an LLC, it's going to explain what line, he's going to pull it up right here. It's going to explain and identify what line on the tax form you use. If you're structured as an LLC, typically is going to be a pass-through entity, so you're going to be treated like a partnership. You're going to have K1 proceeds, and it shows exactly what it is. If you're a sole proprietor, then they show the rules for that too and how you calculate it.
And again, folks, this is, on the SBA's website. If you go to sba.gov/PPP for Paycheck Protection Program, it takes you right to this page. And then all the program guidelines are, listed in here, loan details and forgiveness, who can apply, and so on and so forth, right? So if you scroll here, there's an option to find a lender who's participating on the program still. So you click on that link, enter the zip code. It gives you, all the lenders participating. But the document in question, that we're referencing here is how to calculate the loan amounts. So if you click on that, it brings you up to another page, and then you download a PDF version of the same document. So you can see in here, there's 9 topics altogether. So self-employed individuals with no employees is question 1. Self-employed individuals with employees is question 2. Moving on, it's here you have self-employed individual that has a Schedule F, for farming. So here's how you do the calculation, and obviously, LLCs and so on and so forth, S corps and C corps, partnerships. It's all listed in here. It's only a 7-page document, and again, as Wendell mentioned, everything is listed at the very bottom of each section. He talks about, let's say in here, we're talking about a partnership, talks about what tax form you need, what type of documentation you need for the payroll costs, what line items each one of those, amounts can be found on. So really very self-explanatory, and it makes life a lot easier as far as loan application goes.
So I think this is probably a good time to put in a plug for SBA's resource partners. So for businesses out there who want to talk to someone and to get advice and business advice on PPP or EIDL or any business questions, we have our Small Business Development Center network, we have our SCORE organization, and we have 2 women's centers here in Massachusetts. And so if you go on to SBA's Massachusetts website, which is sba.gov/MA, you'll find a button where you can click on to find local resources. And I can tell you, we have an amazing resource partner network. It's all free and confidential, and they're there to help provide you with advice and mentoring so that you can navigate this, but any business issues that you might have.
Great, guys, thanks. So the relocation question has come back up again. The participant says they need to relocate, their downsize and move 3 miles away. It states I may use EIDL to do this in the loan doc if I get permission from SBA.
Yeah, you'd have to get permission. So it's not normally, so if you think of the EIDL loan, it's not for expansion. It's not for, this is a recovery program. And so, so you want to make sure that you're following the loan documents and asking the SBA and letting them know that you need to relocate because of economic reasons. And but I think the main thing when I look at the EIDL eligibility sheet, it talks that it's not eligible for relocation because it's not for expansion. This is not for growth. This is really for recovery purposes.
They're going in the opposite direction where I think because of this, they need to downsize in order to survive. So that sounds like a discussion you have with your SBA agent when you file.
Right. So SBA has a disaster servicing office. And so if this is something that is, happening after the loan, you would be working with the SBA servicing office as far as disaster loans. They're out of Birmingham, Alabama. They're in the process of standing up their servicing functions in order to respond to requests similar to this. So
if you wanted to use this for relocation, those are the folks you'd contact?
Yeah. So is this part of, is the business in the process of relocating now? Is this, are they looking to use the loan proceeds for the relocation? These are the questions that I'd be asking.
Hi, this is Rita.
Hi, Rita.
Thank you for answering the question. So I am using the funds I'm a big gym, and I have to downsize to a small location because my rent is very high, and I've lost a lot of my equipment because I had to sell it as well to recover, to wait for the loan. And then I finally got the loan. So now I have to buy new equipment and relocate because I can't afford my current space. And I'm only relocating a few miles down the street.
Right.
That is
so
my question. Yeah.
So Rita, let me follow up with you on that. And so my email is rhnelson@sba.gov. Eli's email is eli.spayu@sba.gov. Arreste is arreste.varela@sba.gov. Shoot me an email, and I'll get you a clarification email in order to try to help you with your decisions and make sure that you're good to go.
Okay, so rhnelson@sba.gov.
You got it.
All right, thank you so much.
I have a question, guys. So EIDL right now is eligible, only open to farm businesses. Where do you guys view equine operations? Horse stables that do lessons or boarding? Different federal programs view them as agriculture or not. Where are you guys on that?
I don't think that falls under ag businesses. They're not in the business of raising livestock.
All right, you better be careful where you say that, but we'll pass it on.
Yeah, through SBA's regular loan programs, we do stables, we do, horse boarding, we do, riding schools. These are all, businesses that are eligible, under SBA's regular loan programs. And
Okay.
those are all open and available right now. And so, something that we didn't talk about is the SBA's debt relief program. So for any businesses that are out there that have existing SBA loans, whether it's a 7A guaranteed loan, a 504 loan, or a micro loan, SBA is paying 6 months worth of payments on those. For businesses that are getting new loans from SBA, as long as they're done by September 27th, they'd also get SBA paying 6 months worth of payments on those loans. Think of how huge that potentially could be. And then, as far as another normal, regular use of SBA loan proceeds under our guarantee program, but also can be used under our 504 program, is refinancing debt. And, so you keep that in mind also. That's something that we do regularly through SBA's regular loan programs.
Okay. Where I typically see the breakdown on equine programs as agriculture is if they're doing breeding, and in some cases training, they'll view them as agriculture. So Mo Tugas just joined us. Yeah, Mo, we are recording this and we'll make it available, but we still have time if you have any questions. Okay, any other questions or final comments?
This is Aresti, also with SBA, and I cover Western Mass. I just wanted to mention a couple of things for folks. Now, this isn't has nothing to do with SBA, but there's a organization called CISA, Community Involved in Sustaining Agriculture, which is buylocalfood.org. And they have an emergency farm fund that's available up to $25,000, 0% loan that applications are due by the 22nd of June. So now the thing is, the initial qualification is you have to be in Franklin, Hampshire, or Hampden County. So that's something to look into. Again, emergency farm fund by CISA. They're at buylocalfood.org. And then the other thing I wanted to mention for any business is that check with your local municipality or chamber of commerce. Just as an example, Northampton out here was offering grants. Grants, free money to any business. Now, I don't know what the qualifications were or are, or if they ran out of money, but I've been advising people for, as long as we've been doing this now, a couple months, I suppose, that to check with their local township or city or municipality, whatever it is, to see what kind of programs are out there, or reach out to their chambers of commerce, because a lot of time the chambers have their finger on the pulse of what's going on, especially in these times. So anyway, just a couple of things I wanted to mention there.
Okay. With a couple more late questions. One was, when does interest start accruing? I assume when you get the check.
So that would be the case for both programs. Whether it's the PPP or the IDA loan program, interest does accrue from date of closing and disbursement. until the end of the deferment period.
Okay.
But, obviously, the deferment period, is going to allow the small businesses the flexibility, not to affect their cash flow for the short term, at least.
Okay.
So both loans, EIDL and PPP, have automatic deferment periods built in because we know we're in a disaster, and small businesses, you're not looking to take on debt and to make payments starting immediately. So know that there are automatic deferments on both programs.
Okay. We also had a question on if PPP is going to be extended, and I guess along with that, when does eligibility end now? When does the program end as we stand?
June 30th is the deadline on PPP for the lender to apply for the SBA loan number with us. So again, for businesses that are looking for a PPP, they should be having discussions starting now with the lender, getting their documentation in order. Do not go to the lender on the 30th looking for the lender to put the PPP loan through. It might happen, but give the lenders time, but June 30th is the deadline right now. That's the information that we have.
Another question, can PPP be applied for again if we receive payments based on 8 weeks in the first round of application? Now to the extent to 24 weeks, we will be out of 8 weeks payroll money before everyone goes back to work full time.
So the extension of the covered period to 24 weeks did not make any additional funds available. The eligibility and the amount of the PPP loan is based on the 2019 data. So it's based on payroll expenses. So it still would be the same loan amount. The difference, here and the flexibility allowed by the passage of the Flexibility Act is the fact that, that 60% payroll now can be, spent during a 24-week window versus an 8-week window. So it's just added flexibility, but it's the same amount.
Okay.
And they can only get one PP loan. So some people are thinking that with the Flexibility Act that, they could apply for another PPP loan. They're thinking that they could apply with the lender for an increase to their existing SBA loan. Those options are not available.
Okay. To the previous question, somebody asked if this is likely to get extended politically. From what I see down in DC, it looks like there's opposition towards further funding for this. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but it seems like a good part of the delegation would prefer to see this money go elsewhere from this point on. That's just my observation. So. Are there any other questions or comments? Well, with that, we really appreciate you guys coming on and giving us a presentation, answering this. This will be recorded, and we will make it, and we will advertise it. We'll send you folks a link to the recording as well in case you want to share it. So thank you for everybody for your time tonight.
Brad, thank you, and thank you to everyone that participated. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, folks.